You know, the Panama Canal. Why does he want to take it? Well, the United States is the number one country using the Panama Canal. China's number two. China has built all these buildings to handle their shipping. You know, it's everywhere, and once you start looking, you see it everywhere. But militarily, there's none of that. Americans have to understand, even if you don't agree with me, try to understand how the rest of the world looks at it. The United States maintains 750 military bases around the world. China doesn't have any. The United States is a global military presence, the likes of which is not existing anywhere. We are alone in that.
How long is that solitude going to last if, as you're saying, the economic power is diminishing of the United States? That then transforms into diminished political power because, again, the sway is held by the other nations.
Look at the votes in the UN. You'll see the diminished political power right on display.
So then it feels like the military's next.
Right.
How scared should we be?
Well, I put it this way. I think you're at a crossroads now. Either you decide to stay with what you're doing, in which case you're right. They will. Even if they, in their minds, think it's defensive, who cares? They will develop a military capability because that will be their only safety for them. Forget whether you agree with them or not. It's not the issue. But there's an alternative. The alternative is you sit down and you say to your adversary, we both got to live on this planet. Can we work out a deal where we give each other the room to function, to live? Because if we threaten each other, what's the end game of this? We spend a fortune fighting. If we ever slip and make a nuclear war, it's over anyway. So that's a dead end. Why don't we try that? It's a better shot.
Right now, we're still in a moment of shock and disbelief as a global community about the last White House meeting between Trump, his Vice President J.D. Vance, and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky at the Oval Office last week. What was supposed to be, I thought, a fairly ordinary discussion about a deal regarding Ukraine's mineral wealth and military assistance turned into an international spectacle. You had Trump and Vance literally chastising President Zelensky for a perceived lack of gratitude for U.S. assistance. At some point, it went from a meeting to a shouting match in many respects. And Zelensky was eventually asked to leave the White House, which is something I personally have never seen before in my short time on this planet. Some people say this is a historical turning point again. How does a moment like that speak to where we are as a nation and also the possibilities of the U.S. being a steward of global leadership moving forward?
Yeah, well, the United States is at that point which every empire has had when it's over, when the empire is in decline. It's happened to every other empire. I know we might want to believe that we are the exception, we are the empire that will last forever, but the burden is on the person who believes that, given the historical record. So for me,
is this about a declining empire, or is this just about bad leadership?
No, this is about a declining, it may also be about, it's not either or. But the important thing is not the lousy leader, which we have. The importance is that on the issue of what we just talked about, coming to terms with China, sitting down, how do we live together on this planet? Unfortunately, Mr. Trump is exactly where Mr. Biden was. There is no difference between them. The pivot to China, which, by the way, was initiated in those words by Mr. Obama as president, has been followed by everybody since. In fact, one of the arguments made by the new defense head is that we have to free up our resources to confront our real problem. You're going to see that coming from the Trump administration now more and more as they disengage from Ukraine, a lost cause.
But that's not a situation that would be replicated by Biden or Obama, would you say? I mean,
no, Biden wanted to fight the Russians.
Right.
Trump says, wrong enemy, and you're losing. We don't want to do that. We don't want to send American troops over there because that wouldn't fly at home. So that's a dead end. We can't do that.
Is Trump right?
Absolutely. What's he going to do? Everything the United States has been thrown into that war. Remember at the beginning of the Ukraine war, we weren't going to give them Abrams tanks. We weren't going to give them F-16s. We weren't going to give them HIMARS. We weren't going to give them long-range missiles. Everything that we said, President Biden said, was unturned. We gave them because they were losing. They needed more and more. He wants still more. He wants nuclear. There's no end for. He's losing his country. About a quarter of it are gone already. The Russians occupy it, and they keep moving westward. It's a losing proposition. It's as if the whole 20th century, when I was growing up, I'm a creature of the 20th century, at least the second half of it, everything was told to us in terms of the Cold War. Capitalism, democracy, over here, communism, socialism, over there. That was the great struggle. What happened? All gone? What? Now we're talking Russia, China, we're talking countries, which we used to do before the struggle became socialism and communism. So for me, I think all Mr. Trump is doing is saying, okay, we are now in a world of big powers, Russia, China, US, Europe, but the Europeans are disunified. They're not doing anything. They're not inventing anything. They're fading out of the story. It's really sad for the Europeans. But we're here, and the Chinese are the big one coming up. I mean, let's remember, America's population, keep perspective, America's population is 4.5% of this world. China and the BRICS together is 50-60% of the world. It's not close.
You say that Trump is doing what whoever had become president would have had to do sooner or later. This may be the most generous quote toward Donald Trump that you've ever given. Why?
I'm going to assume that Mr. Biden was a rational leader and that Kamala Harris likewise. I'm assuming that. They would have seen that there are three ways things can go in Ukraine. Number one, we can have a nuclear fight with the Russians. I want to remind everyone, because Americans don't like to face this, most of the world believes, and that's all I can say, therefore I believe it too, that the largest nuclear Armageddon force in the world is the Russians. Bigger than the Chinese and bigger than ours. Number two, a conventional war. That would mean hundreds of thousands of American troops would have to be shipped over there and fight against the Russians. The record historically is not real good. Napoleon invaded Russia, was real sorry. Hitler invaded Russia, was real sorry. Do we really? Mr. Biden always said, no troops on the ground, no boots on the ground. He seemed, and I'm going to give him credit, that's a recipe for a disaster that we will not be able to control.